Howdy ho, friends and foes, and welcome to Dads on Life, your weekly episodic show on parenting from a male perspective. I'm your host, Jason Miles, and with me, as always, are my co-host, Keith Bogan,
Good morning to you, sir.
Chad Holloway,
Top of the morning.
and, and and Dave Dusenberry.
Yes, St. Patty's Day is upon us. Hello, everybody.
I can almost guarantee Doug is probably cooking somewhere along the way. There's probably something for the township in Bath that they're doing today, some kind of St. Patrick's thing, and that's probably what he's doing, most likely, or prepping for his dinner for his own family. I don't think he's off goofing off. That's not Doug's thing. He is not a big goofer. He's just probably busy as usual. So, excuse me one second. Still a little craggly, still a little under the weather from what seems like a month ago, but a couple of weeks ago. Jesus. So it's come up this week for the 2025-2026 school year. And I know it's 2 years, it's a year, another year off. Why are we talking about this? There have been in Old Bridge, there's been two ideas of what they should do that were put out to the public of what they should do with the schedule. One of them, the first one, gets the kids out June 16th. The other one gets the kids out June 25th. The one on June 16th is pretty much what it's been for years, the regular schedule. One interesting caveat to that is the Jewish holidays are unnamed holidays called Fall Holiday 1 and Fall Holiday 2, or Fall Break 1 and Fall Break 2. No mention of holiday. The second schedule, for the first time, has Indian and Muslim holidays added. I believe there's 5 or 6 days that are holidays added, including Diwali and a few others. 2 of the L's, the El Muslim holidays, the one in June. And there's the popular opinion seems to be, and it's more or less the fact of getting out 9 days difference, because people have things that want to do things and they can do it in this time frame and they can't do it after this time frame. So it's more the discussion has been online so far is it's not fair to the kids to get out almost in July. So my question is why are we just talking about giving Muslim and Indian holidays in 2025, 2026? Floor is open.
So I'll kick it off because why not? Right. So I'd be interested to see. Obviously, Old Bridge is one school district case amongst many, right? Be interested to see whether or not that's just an individual township thing, or it's based on the communities that these school districts are in, right? So the first example that I think of right away is Metuchen, right? So I think I'd be very curious to know what the school district calendar is in Metuchen. Now, for those that don't know, for those that are following along at home that aren't Jersey residents, Metuchen has a very high Indian population, right? I'd be curious to know amongst their school district if working in the Indian holidays is something that has been done already. I'm assuming it has, but I don't have that fact, right? Obviously our nation is based on standard issue Judeo-Christian holidays where everything's rooted in. I find it very interesting that the Jewish holidays are no longer going by name, but instead are labeled generic holiday 1 and generic holiday 2. That's fascinating.
We know why. You can figure out why pretty easily. They're trying to cover it up that they're still doing them.
And so obviously the thing that you run into is scope creep between state and religious, right? So multiple religions have multiple recognized holy days. depending on the size of the, I guess, given religious population within your town, that would tend to dictate when kids are off from school, because kids need to, it's not that the schools are religious, it's that the population of the town follows a certain religion that requires certain days off, so kids aren't going to be in school anyway. So the district is like, well, kids are going to be off anyway. Let's just, if 2/3 of the kids are going to be off for this day, why are we only going to have, like, I'm sure that you have to keep a minimum number of kids in the school to keep the doors open, right?
Mhm.
So it's possible that maybe it's possible in Old Ridge that the Indian or Hindi population that celebrates those holy days has grown enough to warrant taking out enough kids in school to that says, hey, we need to celebrate these days and have
Mhm.
school closed these days.
In Sayreville, I wrote one of the comments was Sayreville runs a schedule similar to the second one, which is the next town north of us.
Mhm.
Well, sort of north. But it's the next town over. So that was kind of I think everybody kind of just, a lot of people probably just ignored that. Now, at my point was, as I said, when I started kindergarten, 1984, 85, we were one of the first classes and first generations of the Indian influx in this area. I mean, we went from, there weren't a lot around, to there were a couple, to within, by the time we got to high school, it was a boom, a big boom for us, for our area. And, I mean, it goes without saying, changes happened in grades and things like that, and things changed quickly. And
Sure.
the other thing was, there was a lot of, okay, you kind of just see them you see people with fresh eyes and go, it just, as kids, you kind of just go, they're people, who cares? I don't know what the parents were like. I do know a couple of instances where, my mom was always around them, around people like that, because she was the class mom, and it was nothing, there was never, well, they're different or anything like that. It just was, hey, as with the Muslims, that was a little later. It was towards the end of high school where it's really started. The big influx came in there. But yeah, we watched it happen live on
Yeah.
TV, if you want to, if you want to say it that way. So for me, it's, well, they've been here for 30 years, and we kind of have 30, almost 40 years at this point, and we've given nothing back. They've gotten nothing back. They've gotten nothing in return. Let them. It's 9 days. Come on, it's not that big a deal. But I understand. But like I said, I do understand. Yeah, 9 days is a long time in summer, because of those 9 days, if you get a hot snap, you're out of school a couple days anyway. So I see that argument too. But no, they definitely need the Indians and Muslims. We need to give them what they deserve.
So
If
if we could correct this, let's use the right terminology, the Hindus and the Muslims.
Yes.
And if we took religion out of the equation, but we went along another path that has been discussed over time, and it's going to take another 50 years to get there. Year-long schooling. If we were to go to a schedule that was year-round, with 3-week breaks plus a few federal holidays added in, it would solve all these problems. We wouldn't have the conflict over this topic. We wouldn't give the general population the opportunity to be Christian and lord their Christianity over the rest of people. There would be opportunities to do all this stuff and not have to worry about any of it. But of course, we're 50 years away from that, because that requires that magical thing called change.
And cooperation.
and cooperation. I wasn't even going to go there. I knew how to spell it.
Well,
With that
well, let's
said, there's a whole host of other issues.
sure.
There's probably a big push by the summer day camps for the earlier date. So there's business issues here.
Yep.
I will
there-
bring up something in a minute. Go
Parents
ahead.
in general, working parents might say, "Hey, we've always gone on vacation the second and
That's
third
what I
week
was
of
getting at.
June,
Yeah.
whatever, the end of June, because we
That's
waited
what I was
all year
thinking.
for our kids to be out,
Right.
and we've got preset plans for the next 55 years,
Mm-hmm.
whatever." Again, change.
Yeah.
When people, especially, listen, I'm Christian. I don't give a fuck what you think. I don't care about your holidays. I go on vacation the third week of June, and you ain't gonna screw with that.
Then
Whatever.
take your kids out.
Yeah.
Then take your kids out of school. Save your send them
Listen,
to school sick or whatever, and
I
save the couple
tot-
days off.
I
But
totally
could you
agree
make
with
that
all
same
that.
argument,
I mean,
Jason? That
how
when people
often-
have their holidays, they can take them out of school as well?
let's think about my own experience here with Jeremy and Justin, in that drum corps starts June 1. And to have the I'm sorry, just for Jersey Surf, drum corps starts June 1 for a full-time camp where the kids are supposed to move in that day. But it's a unique drum corps because they're like, school comes first, whatever. You don't come here before school's over. You come to camp when school's over. If you're part of our drum corps, that's the way you handle it. But every other drum corps in the world, every other one is like, if you don't show up the day we start, screw you. And most of them start May 15th.
Yeah.
So what happens in some of those cases is the kids will say, okay, it's important to me to go to drum corps. I'm going to work with my teachers. I'm going to test out early. I'm going to finish my classes early, and I'm going to go. If it's that important to you to go to freaking Jamaica the 4th week of June because you can't work on, you can't do anything else, have your kids work with their teachers and test out early. I don't want to hear this shit. I really don't. I'm not a big fan of extending school to the end of June, but I understand why there might be reasons to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I could very easily be an asshole too and say, well, I'm Jewish. There ain't no Jewish holidays of note in June. But that's what's held Jews back for a long time. So no, I'm not going to go down that path. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, we have here for the girls, from what it sounds like, the schedule is butting up against I think the last day of school is first day of camp this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure, from what it sounds like, they're going to camp. They're going to they're not going to be their last day of school and go to camp. It's the last day of school. Nobody's doing anything anyway. They're not giving tests. They're not doing it. They're done. They're just hanging out with their friends, really.
Right.
For
Although
most-
that is
for the most part.
from a
Or
social
parties in
development
class.
perspective, that's a really important day. That's like skipping, that's like going to prom and not going to the beach afterwards or whatever people do after the prom. There are certain things you just, we've done for centuries that are a part of how kids interact with each other. And they're
Go to
not
the beach,
tied
come on.
necessarily to religious stuff. They're just, they're
Social.
traditions.
Yeah, they're social. They're socially based, right? So, you get those days where, the lazy days at the end of the year where, yes, all the tests are wrapped up. Yes,
Mhm.
pretty much all the grades are submitted. Sometimes there are only half days. Seniors, if you're in
Mhm.
high school, go around, get their yearbook signed. I think that's still a thing. I don't know.
It
I'm
is
old.
actually, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
right after they go to the soda shop.
so, and it's less, and it's funny because I think even teachers kind of get into that because obviously kids develop a relationship with their teachers, during the year.
Sure
And
they do.
during those last late, it's the lazy days of summer. It's getting warm out. People are a little bit more relaxed. They're trying to ease into the break of summer. You're more social and chatting with your friends, walking in the hall, hanging for a bit. Things are not as stressful because you don't have assignments and grades and everything hanging over your head. So it's a nice transition period. Now, look, I know plenty of parents that are like, last couple of days, my kids aren't doing anything. We're going away. We're just going to take them with us. Right. and that's fine. Your impact on your education and learning is very low at that point. You're not really doing any learning, so that's fine. Um, you know, with the later days, I I don't know. I totally get the the numbers, the business impact of it. Like you said, the summer vacations that start, and the camps that open and things like that. Now, you're saying that this is proposed for the 24-25 school year or the 25-26 school year?
25, 26.
Okay, so this isn't for this next year starting in
No.
September. This is for a
No,
year and
that
a
is
half,
it.
basically, from now.
I think that agenda is done already. I think
Okay.
24, 25 is already done.
Okay,
I would
so
hope so.
so you're giving basically a year and a half to 2 years notice to everybody in the town that says this is what we are looking to do. Now, that gives families notice, that gives business areas notice, that gives everybody notice that if you have to adjust your programs, is it going to suck? Sure. Can you do it? Yes. So those I think are mitigated with the early notice, in my opinion. I don't know. I think if your population warrants it and you have enough people that celebrate those holidays that they're going to be out of school anyway,
Yep.
then go ahead and enact it. That's to me it seems pretty straightforward. Are people going to be pissed? Sure. Nobody wants to be in school until late June. I sure as hell didn't. My birthday is like pretty much smack dab in the middle of June. I graduated on my birthday. I always looked at my birthday as the start of summer for me. So if I would have to wait another week and a half for that to happen, would I have been pissed? Sure. Would I get over it? Yes.
Well, you guys, even because here in Georgia, I know my daughter's school, they get out and at the end of May.
Yeah.
So we're going to be on vacation by, somewhere by June 15th.
Yep.
June 14th, actually, we're going to be somewhere in June 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then we're going to head down to Florida for a month after that.
Yep.
But and from my perspective, it's like how many people are in the school who celebrate that holiday, right? And it doesn't matter what religion it is or whatever, and if you go around the world, you see different things, right? So, you look at a place like Colombia, they have 40 holidays a year. And they passed a law, I don't know when it was 20 or 30 years ago, that says every holiday has to be on a Monday. So they have like practically every week as a holiday, right? And my wife goes, I don't know what today it's a holiday. They don't have to go to work. They have to go to school. So there's all kinds of things that people can do, but I think it really to have kind of a really structured way and to look at it like if I were making this decision, I would say, how many people is this going to affect? Is it something that they would take their students out of school for? Because I mean, we had a situation a couple of weeks ago. We had an opportunity to go to Florida and have some experiences. Hey, yeah, I know you guys got school, but you're going to do this because these experiences in life are much more important. So there is no, there was no thought about that. Kind of going back a little bit with regard to the year-long school. This was probably 10 years ago, maybe 15. They were doing trial studies of the year-long school in some of the St. Louis school districts. So they had attempted that. It didn't go very well because some of the schools were year-round and some of them were not, and it really created an issue for parents who had one kid maybe in a grade school and one kid in a junior high. So I think they voted against it or thought it wasn't such a great idea. They wanted to go with the historical perspective, and if you all remember, the reason that children have off summer a lot of time is because they worked on farms, right? We're past it,
right,
for the most part. So, I mean, in reality, we could, but it's nice to have a break for the kids, I think. But that's something that's just a historical kind of fact. What else? Yeah, so I mean, and some of the stuff with regard to calling for a school to say holiday 1, holiday 2, winter break. That's a common. I mean, I don't think they say it's Christmas break here. They say it's winter break.
Yeah,
for the kids for Christmas. So
I have
in our
to
house for
look at
Christmas,
that. I
right?
think so too. Yeah.
So
I think
you can call it Rose by any other name, but right? I mean, but it's still whatever you want it to be. So I don't have a problem with the naming it, but I think it's just a matter of how many students. If you have 1 or 2 students, does it make sense for everybody to do that, you go, I'm sorry, but there's this whole thing we have for the greater good here. We don't want to be, kind of dictatorial, but this is what we're going to do in the interest of the majority. I think that's how our society operates, and it's not putting them at a disadvantage. They can certainly take their children out of school, and we've done.
You've hit on exactly why this is happening, because the Northeast and certainly Central and Northern New Jersey in particular have very strong Hindu and Muslim populations now.
Yeah.
It's not one or two anymore.
No, definitely.
In fact, for years we have done some things to accommodate us Jews. Well, there's actually less of us than there are of the Hindus and the Muslims.
It goes back to what Dave said of, if they have to have a certain number of students in school, they may not be hitting it.
Yeah.
That might be a reason why it's being considered.
If you have,
I know around here, that is a definite.
We've had certain areas that have had a I don't want to say a minute amount, but a lesser amount of folks that followed a given religious sect or holiday or whatnot. There's always been in schools around here, at least in public schools, that if you need to make a religious exemption to have an excused absence to go celebrate a holiday, that's always been accepted as far as I know. I think what we're seeing now is the districts have gotten to the point. There comes a tipping point where if you have 5 or 10 students that need a religious exemption out of a body of like 500, okay, that's fine. But I think now you're getting to the point where now you have 120 students.
It might be
that need that religious exception to take that day off. So now you're affecting the numbers that you need to be able to keep the doors open.
And that's maybe something, if the religious part of it is so important, that's maybe where you talk to your congressman, talk to those folks and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't need Casimir Pulaski Day like we celebrated in Illinois.
Yeah.
Some of these other days, maybe we don't need President's Day. Hey, he was very important to the Polish people, and Chicago has a ton of Polish people. So we had Casimir Pulaski
Day. That. Sorry.
Yeah.
My reaction was only like, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, but there you go.
The only Pulaski I know is the Skyway, that's the Black Bridge in North Jersey.
To someone, that's important, right?
Mm-hmm.
To a huge group there's a huge segment of the population of Chicago.
Yeah.
That's very important, right? So, but
let's face it. Let's call this what it really is.
Okay.
And this is where I'm going to drag us all the way down beyond the basement and into horrible places. The reality is you're going to have a lot of people fighting against this because of the insane amount of discrimination and hatred for people of the particularly Muslim faith, but to a certain extent Hindu, because most people cannot separate the two. And that's why, in fact, we fall into the trap of saying Indian.
Yeah, taking over our country. Damn it.
Well,
big dang foreigner.
And linking it to violence and terrorism and things of that nature.
Yeah. Fear of the unknown.
We have a world that believes that if you are of a religion, you must be a terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the whole, and we are not going to go into the subject, but this is the whole reason why there's such angst and horrible things going on with the way people think about what's going on with Israel and Palestine. There's a body of people in my religion who believe everything should be wiped out there, but reality is you have probably several million people there who have nothing to do with it whatsoever.
Right.
So
on both sides.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that today, but you're going to have and I point to people in Old Bridge, are going to have a battle because, the biggest reason you're going to have that battle is racism.
Right.
Or religious bias, whatever the proper term is here.
Prejudice.
Yeah.
It's prejudice. It's religious prejudice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure it's not going to be, I haven't seen it expressed that way. Thankfully, I have not seen it expressed. I know it's there. You'd be blind to think it's not. It's definitely there, because anytime there's been calls to build over the last like year and a half, they've been in discussions about building a Muslim temple in Sayreville and one off near 34 in Old Bridge. And when those come up, it comes out. So we know it's there. Yeah, like I said, you have to be blind not to see it.
Yeah.
We know these prejudice exists in this area. They exist everywhere. We'd be lying if we wouldn't admit that.
And they certainly exist, but for me, I think it's more of a functional thing. Like, how long are we going to spend in school? How much time we're going to, if we're going to go year round, then fine. Let's celebrate all the holidays. But it's not about the prejudice stuff. I mean, I've got plenty of colleagues who are Hindu and celebrate, and we don't have a problem with it. I mean, nobody. And in fact, we were invited to celebrate with them. So it's I don't know. I do not take the conflict theory that Keith does. I certainly understand that there are people who feel like that, but I think there's also a very kind of more functional into the way that we started this off. It changed. People are afraid of change. They don't want to change. And I'm kind of the same way. It's like, I like having my summers.
I'm not
That's
saying
why now I'm a professor, because I can take 3 months off and go jack around wherever I want.
Yeah.
I don't want anything to impinge on that.
And
Because I got a lot of jacking to do.
The opposing thought on that is school is meant to prepare students for the real world, for adult life. And unless you teach, it doesn't do that, because summers are not a time when people get to jack off like that. They summers are a time when you keep working but you take a week vacation or a 2-week vacation somewhere. So
And
our system, which once
Yeah.
upon a time, as you said, was an agrarian system, the kids would take off the summers to go farming. But we don't do that stuff in this country anymore. We should have changed this a long time ago. And if we had, it would have more closely resembled the real world. Not to say that teaching isn't the real world. Well, it's Chad, so it really isn't the real world, but whatever. Like outside of educators, who the heck gets the summer off? It doesn't happen.
So let's take a look at Columbia. Even in Columbia, they have a couple months off, but it's in the wintertime.
When it's actually
They're not big farms there. And
when it's actually worth it to go outside, right? You take off in the summer, it's oppressively hot and humid. Nobody wants to do anything. You stay inside in the air conditioning. You might as well be in school.
Well, depending on where you live. I mean, because there's all
by
kinds
the way,
of climates
let's not
in
even
Columbia.
bother talking about other countries, because other countries respect the concept of time off. In Europe, they have 6 weeks of vacation like real humans.
Right.
Not the trash that we do in this country. We're like, spinning off into all sorts of different subjects here. But in the United States, what do we have? We have 12 weeks of vacation in the summertime. But if we had 4 3-week vacations throughout the year, it actually it wouldn't be perfectly representing of working life, but it would be a lot closer to. It would be that would actually be a great compromise.
Yeah.
But and here's my thought on that is. To a point, I view education as a way to train people to work, but I view it as more of an opportunity to make them well-rounded, to open their minds some,
I agree.
and to create new experiences for them so that they are better humans overall, not to train them to work. Training them to work, because I used to be trained to work, and I would say it was probably in 2007. I read a book and said, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. It was a particular book. And so I changed my life. And I did a pretty good job of it, of making a few bucks and taking time off when I wanted to. I made my schedule very flexible. If you're going to go work in a 9 to 5, it's not going to work. But so we can look at the whole issue of education on another day. But even now, like I go, what are we teaching people? If we're teaching people to work, let's put some shop classes back in there. Let's make it so it's not so easy for people to pass, who aren't making the grade, who aren't meeting the standards, right? I mean, we started doing all this stuff so that students would not have their self-esteem take a shot, right? But you can't tell me that they're not taking a shot, that they're not at a disadvantage getting out without the skills. So there's all kinds of things that go on with that. But anyway,
Well, you
that's
bring up a very interesting point. Should we change school to represent work more, or should we change work to represent life more?
Well, the European model would be the latter.
Exactly.
The US model is more the former. And I think so. It's interesting, right? So does it make sense to align school to more of an adult work life schedule? I guess, yeah, I could see that. Um, I'm not much of a traditionalist in any way, shape, or form. Not my thing. I like change. I'm actually one of the people that like pushes for change because with change comes growth, and that's pretty awesome. I will say that having the opportunity to have summers off for kids, at least in my experience raising my kids, um, you know, you have an entire lifetime to stress about bills and home life and and obligations and all of that stuff. Um, until you achieve that legal adult age, 18, quote unquote, um, having that time of just completely unstructured, don't have to do anything if you don't want to or your parents don't plan it. Having that time to just be you is I find it valuable. I think it's been valuable to my kids. Um, uh, I would be hesitant. If you want to cut that down to 2 months, that's fine. I wouldn't want to do away with it altogether. I think that time we don't get a chance to really get to that level unless you're Chad every year. Um, to be able to just be you in this world untethered from like all this other crap. And I think kids need that to discover who and what they are as they're going through their formative years. That's my personal opinion.
Yes, but do we stop needing that as adults? And hence I would vote for, if we were ever going to do a dramatic change in society, it would be to change work to resemble life, not the other way around.
I mean, you're going to get a buy-in from me. The difference is
that's what I've done.
You're not going to get a buy-in from the 1%, the people who make all the money from the 99%. That's the problem. What about
But
12?
am I in the 1%?
So far to go into politics today. This is great.
But am I in the 1%? I read that book and I said I need to design my life different.
Yeah.
I need to do things where I have flexibility. I mean, I can't just go live in Colombia for 3 years just because. I mean, I had to design that. And each of you can design that. And if you're not doing things that you don't want to do, then re-examine your life, come up with your plan, and execute it.
Yeah. I mean
that it's important
for my particular career, right? So I'm what used to be classified as your typical 9-to-5 office worker type of person, right? The pandemic didn't provide a lot of benefits, but for a completely selfish reason, it encouraged my particular company to go full-time work from home, which for me has been a blessing. Combine that with a policy about basically allowing unlimited PTO if needed. Basically, my boss said that, hey, if you need to take time off, take time off. Just make sure your stuff's covered. Which, to me, is the most logical thing in the world, right? If I need to take 3 weeks off to go do something, as long as my stuff's covered, they'll approve it, which is pretty cool. It allows me some flexibility in my particular life. If I need to take a sabbatical, I could take it. I personally find that, obviously the downside for adults is that we still have financial obligations that we need to make, right? Taking 3 months off of work. If you're in the type of career where you could do that for the summer, you have a couple of options. You could either choose to I know I have friends that are teachers, and their payment options are they can either keep getting paid during the summer and they get a lowered amount during the school year, or they get their full amount during the school year and then they don't get paid for it during the summer, right? There's a couple of different options that you can take. would I be willing to take a lower percentage of my pay during the year to allow me to keep getting paid at that level so I could take that time off? I would be open to that. I would consider that. I think in the nature of the business world doesn't allow that because the world doesn't shut down for 3 months. People still need to buy things. People still need to go out and do things. There's still commerce to be had and services that need to be rendered for people that need them, and that everybody just can't shut down.
Everybody can't shut down, but individually, if you wanted to, you could shut down, right? I mean, and what
Sure.
you're doing, like, I'd
Sure.
imagine you get some programming stuff.
Yeah,
I know you got
absolutely.
kids at home, but if your kids aren't home, could you do that from another country?
Oh, my long-term goal is to get very well developed in my particular field of expertise. If and when I get to the time where I retire, and then I consult and make my own hours.
Yeah,
I say, hey, I need to get paid. I need to make a little bit of extra money. I'm going to consult for 3 months. I'm going to help these people out, stand up this particular system, get paid a certain amount of money, and then take the next 2 or 3 months off and keep doing some stuff.
yeah.
That's my long-term plan for doing stuff.
And I've got some ideas because I did that was one of my mistakes and that I learned from was the consulting issue. And we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But and you know, I was just thinking too, Keith, I remember he posted about how many times he had traveled here, he had traveled there. So I think he's got a little more flexibility than he's letting on. He's
Oh, I never said
participated
that I
with the
didn't have
boys.
flexibility in
Yeah.
that regard. I mean, as a consultant, I've been able to, and I've been working remote jobs since 2017.
Yeah.
So it was before the pandemic.
Yeah. So you've kind of done that anyway. I mean,
I've
you've
done
already
some of it. I still, as I noted with my colleagues a couple of days ago in frustration, there has not been a day in the 16 months I've been in this current assignment, holidays and weekends included, that I haven't opened my laptop and worked at some point.
Yeah. And that's a trade-off, but
Yeah.
That's not overly healthy though.
Yeah, that's
well,
true.
and it depends. I mean, I used to get into it with my ex-wife because we'd be somewhere on a vacation and I'd have to answer emails or whatever. But I'm like, it takes me 20 minutes a day to keep all the balls in the air, you know, and it's worth it to sit here by the pool and answer something on my phone or whatever. So it's just anyway. So my thought is that I don't know that education has to mirror the work life. I mean, I think that, you know, but that's what I'm trying to do is trying to teach my students anyway, to open their minds, to think differently of how to do things and to not depend on the 1% or the government because both of them will fail you,
Yeah.
but to depend on yourself.
Yeah.
But wouldn't work life be so much better if we worked year round, but we had 4 3-week vacations?
And you know what? With the way things have gone with technology going as it is, I learned this from my older son and the career that he has, that his ambitions are towards, right? He basically wants to work for himself. His long-term plan is to go in and take classes to develop his particular skill set, which is heavy into graphic design and things like that. And he wants to minor in business so that he can develop the skills to be able to work for himself as either an independent contractor, consultant, freelancer, do whatever he needs to do, set his own hours, work his own schedule, work when he feels he needs to work to take care of what he needs to take care of, and own his own life, as opposed to being owned like I do, where I have a corporate schedule where I have to be in the office, you know, or take care of things 5 days a week and, you know, work occasional weekends and blah, 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 blah. He wants to take a different path. Obviously, the challenge for that is making sure that your healthcare is covered. And that's the big one. And it can be affordable and take care of. But that's a whole separate conversation that we're not going to get into at this point because I can
Red number 13 on the politics. Okay.
So, but to go back to our root cause about the schedule for the schools, I stand by this. I mean, if there's anything that we've seen from this topic where Chad has brought up his stuff from St. Louis and Georgia, is that a lot of these school district decisions on holidays and how often kids need to be in school and when is really it's either state by state, in some case township by township. The school district serves the township that it's located in and the populace within that township.
Right.
If the school if it makes sense for the township to take time to start school in the beginning of August and run through middle of May, as opposed to our places where it's September through June, then that's what the school district does. If the school district says, listen, we have 65% Muslim population in this town and 35%, Anglo-Saxon or other, well, then it makes sense to add these holidays to the school calendar because nobody's going to be in school anyway.
Mhm.
I think allowing the township, and the issue obviously that you run into is what you said, Jason, is where you have areas and townships that are in flux and in transition between historical populations and their particular religious alignment, and newer populations that are moving in that are looking to adjust that, right? That's where Old Bridge is now.
Mhm.
And that's why this question is coming up, and that's why there's some controversy around it, because you have traditionalists that are like, well, these people are coming in, I'm used to this. This is what it should be because this is what it was for me.
Yeah.
And not being considerate of the changing demographics within that township and saying, listen, we got a bunch of new people that are here that this is part of their tradition. They're not going to be in school because that's what their religious beliefs call for. No different than you with Christmas and Easter and stuff,
Mhm.
If the majority of the people aren't going to be here, there's no reason to keep the doors open.
Right. I mean, I would like to see what Edison's schedule looks like.
Yeah.
That's another one.
Yeah,
I would like to
absolutely.
see that schedule.
I think you're right on, Dave. I think the issue is that the school administrator needs to read the room.
Yeah.
And that's that's it with most of the things. Read the room. Who's in there? What are the needs that have to be met?
Because
Go around. Yeah.
That's,
Well,
that's what public office is, right? The public office in a given area is, I mean, the definition of it should be to serve the public, in whatever capacity that is or whatever role it is that you're looking to do. You see what the public needs are. You always hear about representatives. Well, I'm the representative for my particular area. This is what my constituents say they need this. So I'm going to advocate for this. Even if it's not something I personally would want, my constituents say I need this. So I am advocating for this. Like, public office and school districts should be no different.
board members do evaluations for teacher reviews in some communities. Maybe they should do reviews for the student numbers and populations too. I don't obviously they're not noticing it if this is an issue.
Yeah.
Still, like I said, 30 years after the almost 40 years after the influx. 40 years after the influx, really.
So interestingly enough, you guys, Jason, a moment ago, you said I'd like to look at the Edison calendar. And there's a perception that the Edison School District has a large percentage of people from the country of India. I don't think there's any school district that has as large a percentage as West Windsor and Plainsboro.
Yeah.
Living here, I know that because it's right next
Right.
door to me.
No,
And,
I was going there too. I would have gone there too eventually.
so
Yeah.
while in the background here, I've been sniffing through the West Windsor Plainsboro Regional School District calendar.
Mhm.
And although there doesn't appear to be any special accommodations, any special holidays at all that would reference the Hindu or Muslim population. And by the way, I'm not looking at you right now. I'm looking at what's on the calendar.
Yeah.
I'm noticing odd things like April 16th, which simply refers to schools are closed. It doesn't say why. I'm sorry, it's April 23rd. Which is interesting. There's no reference to why.
They
It's
just put school
closed.
closed.
Right. And it's a Tuesday. So
Cool.
This year?
and the next day is also
year?
closed, but this one's referred to as emergency closing day 1. Oh no, so that day is open. Excuse me. That's one of those days. It's an overflow day in case they have too many snow days. They close.
Yeah.
Whatever. So, but they're actually going to be open. So I think there's a couple of different examples, but just individual days on the West Windsor Plainsboro Regional School District calendar where the
Keith?
schools are closed.
Yeah, that's for this
without
year.
any explanation.
Keith,
Yes.
it's your people's holiday. It's the beginning of Passover.
I'm sorry, did that just come out of your mouth? What?
Beginning of Passover.
Passover?
I
is that
realized.
late?
I remember that. That's the beginning of Passover. April 23rd begins Passover this year.
See, I always associate it with right around the beginning of the month.
Yeah, I know.
totally-
Easter. And I said that.
Is
and I
Easter that
actually
late
said-
also?
No, I said to Elise, usually we end up doing Passover at my brother-in-law's the Saturday before Easter. And I said to Elise, I said, I forgot why oh no. Because I know that he might do it the week after sometimes, and Delana and I are going to be in Philadelphia for something for WrestleMania. I said,
Well,
tell Greg.
that's the way to handle a Passover, that's for sure.
There you go.
I said, tell Greg if he's going to do something for Passover, please do it the Saturday before Easter. And she looked at me and said, they're not going to be here. And I went, what? She said, they're going to California for Easter, and Passover is not until the end of the month. I went, what? She said, yeah. She told me, and I just looked and realized, oh yeah, it's the 23rd. The 23rd starts Passover this year. April 23rd. That's what it's there. That's
Well,
what it is.
technically it starts the
It's-
evening of Monday the 22nd, you're right.
It's unnamed, but it is
So they're doing the same thing
Passover.
that Old Bridge is doing. They're
That's what it sounds
not
like.
naming the holidays, which I find,
That's what it
and they're
sounds
doing
like.
it this year. So it's not like a mythical projection that they don't want to talk about for the future. It's this year. But they're closing for the first night of Passover, which I think is very nice. There's no reference to Muslim or Hindu holidays in March, April, May, or June. And as we know, Ramadan, and I'm not savvy enough to know whether that's a Hindu or a Muslim holiday.
Muslim.
Thank you. That's certainly
Started
now.
last week.
Isn't that now or very soon?
It's happening now. It started
Right.
last week, I believe.
So in a school district that is that populated, very high number of people from India, and again, maybe all of them are Hindu and they're not Muslim. I don't know, but there's no time off for it at all.
Are there other unnamed days off?
I
maybe-
do not see them.
Okay,
I'm
I was
still
gonna say
sniffing.
maybe we don't. Maybe if we looked on the calendar, you just like we just found Passover, you might find them
Yeah.
as unnamed holidays.
So
As a
would
name-
Old,
But
would
even though
Old Bridge do
something's
the
a
same thing?
holiday, doesn't mean that it needs to be a day off.
No,
I mean, that's the other thing, because my recollection of Ramadan is it's like a day of fasting. So I
Because
remember when I was at the University of Miami, I had several Muslim workers I was working with, and they just would not be able to eat and those kinds of things. But then at night, that's when their festivities would be.
Yep.
So they don't need to take the day off necessarily to participate.
yeah, but one of the two Jewish holidays we celebrate is a fasting holiday.
Do you need to take the day off?
We Jews have always taken the day off because fasting's not easy.
It's
Okay.
always been a day. It's always
Well,
been a day
that's
off
for
in
the
our area.
Jews.
It's always been a day off in our area because of population numbers.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because I don't know, but it just, for me, just because it's a holiday doesn't mean that it's a day off necessarily, because the real, there was a study I did when I went to Saudi Arabia, pulling up some information after, I think it was can't remember if it was Ramadan. It was one of the holidays, but it was talking about the influx of money into the economy. It was like they would fast during the day, but then at night they wouldn't prepare food at home. They would typically go out, and there's all, I don't know, there's just it's more complicated, I think, than needing a day off necessarily. Just because a holiday doesn't mean you need it off. Ash Wednesday, Catholics don't need off.
Well, it's interesting, holidays like President's Day, for instance, wouldn't it make more sense to be in school that day to learn about why that's a holiday? Just
Mhm.
saying.
Well, And some of those are some of those that I said, maybe we should get rid of some of those.
Look,
Like, why?
all I gotta say is that if we're gonna get rid of holidays, the federal government has to keep the one that was just recently enacted. All right. So if everything else goes away, that's fine. You have to keep Juneteenth. That's my birthday. It needs to be a federal holiday, and it has to be recognized nationwide. I'm just gonna lay that out there.
Well, I mean, but it has to be recognized for your birthday, nothing
Well,
else.
of course. I mean, look, obviously something else significant at some point happened on that day, but whatever.
From now on, Juneteenth will be Dave's birthday.
Yes.
And now we will forevermore we will not forget what Juneteenth is.
Exactly. I am the reason for the season.
Well, so in the working world, in the working world that I just, savaged because I don't like the way it's structured, and most people don't. But one of the popular HR theories is to not get rid of all holidays, but to make them all floating holidays. To
Mhm.
give the employees the choice of whether or not to take them off.
Yep. We did
So
that.
if you would normally give 12 holidays a year, you would simply assign 12 floaters. Maybe they should think about that in the school districts as well.
Yeah, the issue is though,
Management
and if
of holidays for students, that's a lot to juggle.
it is, and
It's a lot to juggle in the workforce too, but we figured out how to do it.
yeah,
By the
again,
way,
the
the reason
difference
why
is
it's not typically done is because you've got managers who are too fucking lazy to do that. Like, oh my God, so much to work on. I'm just gonna add work. Well, guess what? You're managing the fucking function. It's part of your responsibility. Oh, I don't want to do that. I just want to sit here and smoke my pipe. Fuck you. But that's what it is. And that's why most managers in the United States suck and they're not good to manage. People who know how to manage can handle that without a problem.
And I can tell you right away, we'd be in school every day and we'd get out of school 12 days early.
Yep.
That's what
And
we
a
would
lot
do.
of kids might do that. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. But that's how you manage your schedule. That's fine.
Interesting.
Ramadan is more important to some than others. Passover is more important than some than others. Christmas Day is more important to some than others. For years, I've had no problem working on Christmas Day if they'd wanted me to. Well, gee, I wonder why,
Yeah.
It's just not a big deal. It's about change. It's about the idea of doing something that hasn't been done for decades.
Mm-hmm. For years, this country was primarily Judeo-Christian in its beliefs, right? That was the majority, the great majority for a very long time. We have since, over the last, 30, 40 years, heavily diversified in the number and popularity of non-Judeo-Christian religious sects in this country. That comes with a cultural impact, that comes with an attendance impact, right? I see it in my IT industry all the time. Diwali's a very, very, very big deal. One of my coworkers throws a Diwali party at their house every year, and it's super duper fun. I never really celebrated Diwali up until like five years ago with my company, and it's freaking awesome, right? The food's great. It's a lot of fun. I totally get it. But that wasn't a thing for like 20 something years, not my industries, because there wasn't a population in the area to justify people really getting into that on a larger scale. And we're seeing that now. And I think there's every reason to adjust to it if that's what the community calls for.
Again, it relates to reading the room.
Reading the
With
room.
your audience.
That's what it comes down to.
Right.
Represent those that are in your town.
I think that's a pretty good place to leave us for today. I know Keith has to do something else with his brothers on a phone call that he usually does. So we're gonna wrap this up here. Anybody have anything they want to add before we head out of here?
Stay in school, kids.
Yeah, all year long.
Get off my lawn. So, from all of us here at Dad's on Life, take care, everybody. And of course, Keith, eat my shorts.
Always, always, always.